Our featured celebrity this morning on Studio 10 is the legendary actor Kurt Russell. Just been in millions of different things from the time he was a child up until now.
Sure, one of my favorites, Overboard, with Goldie Hawn.
Yeah, and
yes.
they met on, I believe they met on the set of Swing Shift.
Did they?
Yeah, he
Okay.
was actually married to somebody before, and he had a son with her. And he and Goldie have been together for decades and decades.
I
and
love them as a Hollywood couple.
The reason it works, they never got married.
Well, I can relate to that.
I think a lot of us can. But anyway, Kurt Russell has a new documentary. It's available now on Netflix. This is our chat with the one and only Kurt Russell. Take a look. Kurt, I remember years ago watching you on one of the late night shows, Letterman, or might have even been Johnny Carson, and you were talking about your time as a baseball player, and you were talking about just how wild, from a social standpoint, that lifestyle is. Are there any particular stories that you can share about that time in your life here on morning television?
I think those stories are better shared by the documentary that my two nephews did. The Battered Bastards of Baseball is really all about during the time that I was playing. I was actually in El Paso when my dad wanted to buy this territory in Portland to put this club together. So really that's what the documentary is. It brings forth the time and the feeling and all the sort of the way that people were at that time. So I have to do Letterman later on today, and there were a few stories that I told on Letterman which I don't recall now, but that was many years ago. And I don't know, he may have a surprise for me there, but it's a wonderful documentary that Chap and Mac put together, and I'm loving the fact that it gives the world an opportunity to see this historical ball club and how it was put together, and really the story of David versus Goliath, which was my dad versus the organization of Major League Baseball.
And it's so cool because baseball really is literally in your blood with your dad and your nephew as well. Matt Franco was with the Mets, and you were a top prospect with the Angels organization. So what kind of player were you? What position did you play?
I was a second baseman. I could turn double play pretty good and hit pretty good, so that's what I had going for me. I wasn't real fast, so I had things that were going to be standing in my way. But I got hurt when I was playing Double-A ball in Texas, and it was probably a blessing in disguise. I can't deny it.
How did you, and a lot of people have talked about this, how you and like Ron Howard are among a handful of actors who were very successful child stars and then successfully made the transition into adulthood as adult stars. I mean, was that something that, because we've seen it go wrong for a lot of kids stars, was that something your parents made sure that they addressed, or was it just luck of the draw? How did you survive being a kid in Hollywood and becoming a successful adult in Hollywood?
You know, I think probably luck of the draw has a lot to do with it. I was under contract to the Walt Disney Studios from the age of 13 to 23, 24, and gave me a place to work and doing things that I thought were pretty good quality of the time. And excuse me. And I think also probably having more to do with it is the style of actor that I was. I never played kid stuff. I didn't look at it that way, didn't play it that way. And I think that I had something to offer that was different, and it didn't have anything to do with being young, old, or anything. I think Dakota Fanning, for instance, is just a great actress, whether the fact that I worked with her when she was 10 years old. She's now 21 or something. She's just a brilliant actor. And she worked all through that time period. I think that you have to have something going that you believe in.
Kurt, just double checking all your movie credits, and until now, I really don't see any that were baseball movies. So have you just been being kind to Kevin Costner all these years, or just the right project until now hasn't come along?
There's a pretty great story there with Bull Durham. I won't go into it, but there's a pretty good story there with Ron Shelton, a good friend of mine, really good director. We ended up having the opportunity to work together a couple of times. Bull Durham at one time was something that I was going to do. Didn't work out. But I think that the reason I haven't done any baseball things is because I have never really liked the ones that were offered to me. They're always kind of done by people who are fans of baseball, never by people who know baseball. And I think that's what was different about Bull Durham. That's what's fun to see in this Battered Bastards of Baseball. You see this really crazy team, but you see the way it's, you see what real baseball is and that kind of thing. I'm sensitive to doing anything with baseball unless it's really accurate and good.
Hey, Kurt, before we let you go, I've always wanted to ask you this. In that Elvis movie, it happened at the World's Fair back in the early 60s. In this one scene, you have to kick Elvis Presley in the shin. How did you and Elvis work that out beforehand, and were you a little freaked out about having to kick the king of rock and roll on camera?
I was just in there doing my thing, you know, I was just doing my job, and they put this pad on his shin, so I made sure I didn't miss that pad. And no, the thing that I was much more working with was I was only 10 years old, and the first thing I had to do was I had this director, I think his name was Norman Tokar, but I can't remember. And he just saw this guy as sort of, when he would say lines and say things to me, he had a New York accent. So I translated that into thinking that he wanted it played like a New Yorker. So I kind of had this New York accent. The first thing right out of the box, I was playing a character. And when I see that, whenever I've seen that since then, I always crack up because it was my version. I was much more concerned about the accent than breaking Elvis' shin. You know?
Well, it sure looked real. You sold it well, but that's the mark of a good actor. We're looking forward to this series on Netflix and this documentary. Kurt Russell, thank you so much for your time with us today inside Studio 10.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.